Interviewers create their perception of you based on what they see and what they hear. So, what are the percentages that they actually rely on? Well, the reality is 70% visual. So that's 70% is given to your body language and eye contact. 23% is auditory. So that means the sound of your voice. And only 7% is actually given to what you say. So if it's only 7%, why do we spend so much time creating our questions and answers? Well, the reality is that when you're feeling very confident that you've prepared your answers at interview, your body language and eye contact actually tell the interviewer that you're somebody who is confident and trustworthy. So let's take a look at some body language signals that interviewers watch out for. Your head position, okay? It's really important that obviously this is the part of your body that they're interacting with most, because they're making eye contact with you while you're talking to them. So just remember that it's very nice to have a slight tilt on your head, just because that looks like you're listening. Okay, arms. Big gestures mean that, you could be trouble, because you're obviously quite forceful. And very small gestures or no gestures mean that you're either very shy or you're feeling intimidated. So it's very important just to, have very relaxed body movements in exactly the way that you would when you're sort of interacting with somebody in business, not how you'd interact with somebody in the pub. Legs are somewhat difficult to control because they're actually the furthest part of your body away from your brain. But the great thing to remember is that once you feel comfortable and relaxed, your legs will also look comfortable and relaxed. A good posture is either to have your 2 feet flat on the ground or have 1 foot flat on the ground with the other leg crossed. But just remember not to create the dangerous figure 4, which is where a man will actually put his foot up onto his knee, because that actually creates a defensive body language pose. Your ears listen, and it is important that you use them more than you use your mouth at interview, because if you listen very carefully, then you're guaranteed to be able to answer a question holistically and in the way that the employer needs to hear the answer. The angle of your body is very important when you're in interview, particularly if you have more than one interviewer. So rather than just sitting up straight and erect, always sort of just lean into somebody and maybe angle your body slightly to whatever way they're angling. And the way you do that, it's called match and mirror. So if somebody's sitting at a slight angle, then it's almost as if they should be looking in a mirror and you match that. If their hands are making slight gestures, you mirror and match. If they're nodding their head, you nod your head. So just remember, matching and mirroring is a very good way of creating rapport. When you're actually sort of turning between 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 interviewers, remember just to tilt from the pelvis so that although you're actually seated in your seat, this is where you move from. So you can actually move that way and move that way without actually sort of moving your base. Handshakes are very important at interview. So remember, you never offer your hand unless an interviewer offers their hand first. A strong handshake is a nice thing unless it's too strong. So actually, a lot of men like to create a very strong handshake and they think it makes them look tough, when in fact, it actually says, I'm trying to over-impress. So a very strong handshake is not a good thing. Or a very weak, sort of fishy handshake, that's not a good thing, because that actually says that you're nervous or that you don't like the person. But if you are offered a hand, then it's important to give a firm handshake. We're going to talk a little bit about interview etiquette. And that's purely and simply that you feel comfortable, that you're doing the right thing when you go through the door and you start giving that interview that's going to get you that job, okay? So the first thing to remember is smile when you walk in, okay? Because then it looks like you're happy to be there, and it also sends a signal to them that you're confident, okay? You also want to acknowledge everybody at the table. So if you've got more than one person, if you've only got one, you say, hi, really nice to meet you. And then you take your seat. But if you've got a couple of people, you go, hello, hi there, how are you? thanks for seeing me, nice to be here. So you just make a little connection with each person at the table, okay? Now in terms of offering to shake hands, remember, only offer to shake hands if they offer first, because it's their interview. So only offer to shake hands if they offer their hand first. Remember to say, thank you for taking the time to see me. Because now they know, hey, she's a really nice person. She was smiling walking in the door, she acknowledged each of us, and she's actually saying thank you for taking the time. So it shows you as being a very positive and nice person. Remember to listen carefully to every question that you're asked. So there are a lot of the do's at interview. And of course, always remember to say thank you so much before leaving. It's always good to know what you should do at interview. But here are a few things that are definite don't do's. Don't speak too fast. Don't give too much information and just talk for long periods of time. If you're in doubt about the actual sort of ratio of the speed of your voice, actually just listen to the interviewer and match and mirror. Don't exaggerate or lie about what you've put on your CV. Don't get too emotional at interview. So try not to say, I really need this job. Or, you know, if only I could have this job, I know I could do well. Okay? If you want to say something like that, say it in a rational, logical manner, but just don't be emotional, because emotions are something that don't work well in the workplace and it will put an employer off. Okay? Remember not to be too overly defensive. Because sometimes if an employer is asking a question, they may be asking the question for a specific reason, or, which can quite often be the case, they may be asking the question because they were told that's a good question to ask at interview. Don't be evasive. And the only reason that you would ever be evasive is if you have not reviewed your CV and your cover letter well. So remember that everything you've put into your CV and your cover letter, you should actually have gone through again just to make sure that there's no holes there. So if they ask a question, just answer the question. If you're evasive, then they think you've got something bigger to hide, okay? Great. In terms of what to wear or what not to wear at interview, there are some basic do's and don'ts, okay? Do leave your personality clothes at home. It's important that when they see you, they only see your possibilities. You don't really want them to see if you've got this zany, crazy personality. Leave that for day one on the job.